1 year after my daughter's death, I went to visit her grave. When I arrived, I found an unknown little boy crying at her tombstone. I approached him, but I froze completely when I heard what he said. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The cemetery looked different in autumn. Golden leaves scattered across the marble headstones, and the October wind carried a chill that made me pull my cardigan tighter. I had driven 40 miles from my farmhouse in rural Pennsylvania to this place 12 times now, once each month since they buried my daughter here. But this 13th visit would change everything. June had been 35 when the accident took her. A year ago today, the grief still felt fresh, like a wound that refused to heal properly. My son Michael said I needed to move on, to stop these monthly pilgrimages. But how could a mother simply forget her child? So I came, armed with fresh flowers, white lilies, her favorite, and a heart still learning to beat around the absence. The parking lot was nearly empty on this Saturday afternoon. Most people visited on weekends, I'd noticed. I preferred the solitude, the quiet moments where I could talk to June without strangers' curious glances. I gathered the flowers from the passenger seat and walked the familiar path through Section C, past the old oak tree, 3rd row from the fountain. That's when I saw him, a small boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old, kneeling at June's grave. His dark hair fell forward as he bent his head, and his thin shoulders shook with silent sobs. My first instinct was confusion. June had no children. She'd never married, spent her short life building her career as a marine biologist, traveling to distant oceans I'd never see. I approached slowly, not wanting to startle him. The boy wore a faded blue jacket, torn at one elbow, and his sneakers had seen better days. He clutched something in his small hands. A drawing, it looked like, with crayon marks visible from where I stood. "Hello, sweetheart," I said softly, stopping a few feet away. "Are you lost?" He looked up with red-rimmed eyes, tears streaming down his cheeks. His face carried a sadness no child should know. For a moment, he just stared at me, then looked back at the headstone bearing my daughter's name. "I'm not lost," he whispered. His voice cracked with emotion. "I'm visiting my mama." The world tilted slightly. I felt my knees weaken, and I gripped the flowers tighter, their stems bending under my sudden pressure. "Your mama?" I repeated carefully, my throat constricting. "Sweetheart, there must be some mistake. This is my daughter's grave." "No." He shook his head firmly, standing up now. He was small for his age, thin in a way that suggested irregular meals. "This is where they buried my mama, last year, right before my birthday. She had the accident, and then she was gone." My heart hammered against my ribs. An accident. Last year. The same timing. "What was your mother's name?" I asked, though my lips felt numb forming the words. "Georgia Ball," he said, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. "Georgia Maria Ball. She was 28. She worked at the diner on Route 47 and she made the best pancakes in the whole world." I stared at the headstone. June Elizabeth Horton. Born June 3, 1989. Died October 18, 2024. My daughter's name. My daughter's dates. But this child spoke with such conviction, such raw grief, that ice began forming in my veins. "Where's your father?" I managed to ask. "Or whoever brought you here?" "I took the bus," he said quietly, looking down. "Papa doesn't know I'm here. He says I shouldn't come, that it makes me too sad, but I miss her. I had to see her on the anniversary." The anniversary. About a year. Maybe the same week June died. "What's your name?" I asked, kneeling down to his level despite my protesting knees. "Daniel. Danny. Danny, I'm Audrey. Audrey Horton." I watched his face for any recognition, but there was none. "I need you to tell me exactly what happened to your mother. Can you do that?" He nodded, fresh tears spilling over. "She was driving home from work, late shift. It was raining real hard. The police said she lost control on the mountain road, went over the side. They didn't find her car until the next morning." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. "The funeral man said she looked peaceful, but they wouldn't let me see her. Said I was too young. The mountain road. June had died on a mountain road too, Coming back from a research conference in Pittsburgh. Rainy night. Single vehicle accident. They'd said she'd been traveling too fast for the conditions, missed a curve. But the locations were different. June's accident happened on Route 22 near Duncansville. This boy described Route 47, which ran through the mountains 40 miles west. Danny? I said carefully. What funeral home handled your mother's arrangements? Riverside Memorial, he said. Mr. Patterson was nice. He helped Papa with everything when we didn't have much money. Riverside Memorial, not the same funeral home we'd used. We'd chosen Oakmont Services, closer to home. Something was very, very wrong. Does your father have any papers? From the funeral? Or from when they identified your mother? Danny nodded. He keeps them in a box, under his bed. He looks at them sometimes when he thinks I'm sleeping and he cries. A woman's voice suddenly cut through the air. Daniel Anthony Ball. We both turned. A woman in her 50s hurried toward us, her face tight with worry and anger. She wore a waitress uniform under a worn coat, and her graying hair was pulled back in a hasty bun. Aunt Rosa, Danny said, his voice small. I've been looking everywhere for you. Your papa is worried sick. She reached us, grabbing Danny's shoulder, then noticed me. Her expression shifted to confusion. Who are you? Audrey Horton, I said, rising to my feet. My knees cracked in protest. I was just talking to Danny. He seems to think... We're sorry to bother you, Rosa interrupted, pulling Danny closer. Her eyes darted to the headstone, then back to me, and something flickered across her face. Fear? Guilt? Danny sometimes gets confused. The grief, you know. Come on, mijo. But Aunt Rosa, this is Mama's grave, Danny protested. Hush now. Her grip on his shoulder tightened. We need to go. Wait, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Please. There's been some kind of mistake. My daughter is buried here. June Horton. She died exactly 1 year ago today in a car accident. Rosa's face went pale. For several long seconds, she just stared at me, her mouth opening and closing without sound. Then she shook her head rapidly. I'm sorry for your loss, but we've made no mistake. Georgia is buried here. We have the papers. We paid for the plot. She started backing away, pulling Danny with her. Come on. Now. Mrs. Horton? Danny called out as his aunt dragged him away. I'm sorry about your daughter. I stood frozen, watching them disappear between the headstones. My flowers lay forgotten at my feet where I'd dropped them. With trembling hands, I knelt and touched the cold marble of the headstone. June's name. June's dates. But whose body lay beneath? I pulled out my phone and took photographs. The headstone. The plot number. The surrounding area. Then I noticed something I'd somehow missed in all my previous visits. A small metal identification plate at the base of the stone, partially obscured by grass. I pushed the grass aside. Plot 347C. Registered to Oakmont Services. I called information and got the number for Riverside Memorial. A young woman answered on the third ring. Riverside Memorial, how may I help you? Yes, I need to verify a burial. Georgia Ball, interred October 2024. One moment, please. I waited, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples. The autumn wind picked up, scattering more leaves across the graves. Yes, ma'am. We have in Georgia Ball. Burial date October 19th, 2024. Plot 347C at Oakmont Memorial Gardens. Oakmont Memorial Gardens? I repeated. Not Riverside Cemetery? Oakmont Memorial Gardens. Is there a problem? I was standing in Oakmont Memorial Gardens. Plot 347C. No, I whispered. No problem. Thank you. I ended the call and immediately dialed Oakmont Services. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I checked my watch. 4:47 p.m. They closed at 5. I ran. Well, as close to running as a 63-year-old woman with arthritic knees could manage. By the time I reached my car, I was breathless and dizzy, but I fumbled my keys into the ignition and drove the 10 minutes to Oakmont Services. The parking lot was empty except for one car, a silver sedan that belonged to James Oakmont, the funeral director who'd handled June's arrangements. I'd spent hours in his office, choosing caskets and flowers and burial plots while my world crumbled. The front door was locked. I pounded on the glass. Mr. Oakmont! James! I need to speak with you. A light came on in the back. Footsteps approached. James Oakmont appeared, his professionally sympathetic expression faltering when he saw my face. Mrs. Horton, is everything all right? No, I said. Nothing is all right. I need to see my daughter's burial records. Right now. He glanced at his watch. We're closed and I really should. My daughter's grave has someone else's name on the records at Riverside Memorial, I said, my voice rising. I need to see the paperwork. Now. His face changed. The mask of professional sympathy slipped, revealing something else underneath. Surprise. And unmistakably, fear. I think you'd better come inside, he said quietly, unlocking the door. I followed him through the darkened reception area into his office. He gestured to a chair, but I remained standing while he moved behind his desk. His hands shook slightly as he woke his computer. June Horton, he muttered, typing. Deceased October 18th, 2024. Plot 347C, I added. Oakmont Memorial Gardens. He nodded, clicking through screens. Then he stopped, stared. His face went gray. What? I demanded. What is it? Mrs. Horton, he said slowly. According to our records, June Horton was cremated, not buried. The ashes were released to you on October 25th, 2024. The room spun. I gripped the edge of his desk. That's impossible. I watched them lower the casket. I stood there in the rain and watched them bury my daughter. I don't understand, James said, and I could hear genuine confusion in his voice. The paperwork is very clear. You signed for cremation services. You chose the urn yourself, bronze with rose engravings. You picked up the ashes and stated you intended to scatter them at the ocean per June's wishes. I never said that. June never said that. We planned a burial. I have the plot deed at home. Do you? He asked quietly. Do you really? The question hit me like a physical blow. Did I? I'd been so consumed by grief, so lost in the fog of funeral arrangements and memorial services and endless condolence calls. Michael had handled so much of the paperwork. My son, always efficient, always organized, taking care of everything while I'd barely been able to function. I need to go, I said, backing toward the door. Mrs. Horton, wait. But I was already leaving, my mind reeling. I drove home on autopilot, barely registering the familiar roads. The farmhouse I'd lived in for 40 years appeared through the darkening twilight like a stranger's home. Michael's truck sat in my driveway. My son stood on the porch, his phone pressed to his ear. When he saw me pull up, he ended the call quickly. Mom, where have you been? I've been calling for hours. I climbed out of my car slowly, studying his face, his concerned expression, his furrowed brow, looking for truth, looking for lies. I went to visit June's grave, I said carefully, and I met a little boy there, a boy who says his mother is buried in that plot. Michael's face hardened. Mom, we talked about this. The grief counselor said these obsessive visits weren't healthy. Don't, I warned. Don't treat me like I'm losing my mind. There's a record at Riverside Memorial. A woman named Georgia Ball, same date, same plot number. And Oakmont says June was cremated, not buried. That's ridiculous. Then show me the papers, Michael. Show me the burial deed. The paperwork from the funeral. Something flickered across his face, just for an instant. They're in storage. I told you I was organizing all of June's estate documents. Show me. Mom, it's late. You're upset. Why don't you come inside and we'll... Show me the papers, Michael. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said very quietly, I can't. The world stopped. What do you mean you can't? I mean they're not here. And Mom, before you jump to conclusions, there's something you need to know. Something I should have told you a year ago. The October wind howled through the bare trees, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. I stood in my own driveway, looking at my own son, and felt the ground opening beneath my feet. June didn't die in an accident, Michael said, his voice breaking. At least, not the accident we told you about. And in that moment, standing under the darkening sky with my son's terrible words hanging between us, I realized that the mystery of the wrong grave was just the beginning. Whatever truth lay buried, literally or figuratively, was something my own family had been hiding from me for an entire year. The question was, why? And more terrifyingly, what else had they lied about? Inside, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. You're going to tell me everything. Right now. Michael followed me into the farmhouse, into the kitchen where I'd raised him and June, where we'd shared thousands of meals and countless conversations. But tonight, the familiar space felt foreign, contaminated by lies. I didn't offer him coffee, didn't sit down. I stood with my back to the counter, arms crossed, and waited. Mom, you have to understand. We were trying to protect you. Michael ran his hand through his hair, a nervous gesture he'd had since childhood. You were in such a dark place after Dad died. And when June— Don't. I cut him off. Don't you dare use your father's death as an excuse. Harold passed 3 years ago. I grieved him properly and I survived it. Now tell me about your sister. He flinched at my tone. Good. I wanted him to be uncomfortable. I wanted him to feel a fraction of the fear and confusion coursing through me. June did die in a car accident, he began, but not on Route 22, and not alone. My breath caught. What do you mean not alone? There was another car involved, a head-on collision on Route 47 near the state line. The other driver— He paused, swallowing hard. The other driver was Georgia Ball. She died too. Georgia, Danny's mother. The pieces began clicking together, forming a picture I didn't want to see. June crossed the center line, Michael continued quietly. She was texting, looking at her phone. The investigation showed she never even braked before impact. Georgia didn't have a chance. The kitchen floor seemed to tilt beneath me. No, June wouldn't. She was always so careful about distracted driving. She was upset that night. She'd been arguing with someone. The phone records showed multiple calls in the hour before the accident. She was crying. Mom? A witness at the gas station where she'd stopped said she looked distraught. Who was she arguing with? I demanded. Michael looked away. I don't know. The police wouldn't tell me. Said it was part of the ongoing investigation. Ongoing? It's been a year. Why is it still ongoing? Because Georgia Ball's family wanted to press charges. Or they did, initially. They talked about a civil lawsuit. Negligent homicide. They wanted someone to pay for what happened. I felt sick. So you lied to me? Told me some story about June losing control in the rain, painted her as a victim instead of— I couldn't finish the sentence. Instead of what, Mom? Instead of the person responsible? Yes, that's exactly what we did. His voice rose defensively. Because you were already barely holding on. Because June was dead either way, and we saw no reason to destroy your memory of her with guilt and blame. We. I seized on the word. Who else knows? Vanessa and I discussed it. We decided together. Vanessa, his wife, I should have known she'd be involved. My daughter-in-law had always been controlling, always managing information, always deciding what others needed to know. Where is Vanessa tonight? I asked. At the house with the kids. Mom, please try to understand. And the burial? The cremation? What about that lie? Michael's jaw tightened. That's more complicated. Then uncomplicate it. He moved to the kitchen table, pulled out a chair, and sat heavily. George's family couldn't afford a proper funeral. They were going to have her cremated, scatter the ashes. No ceremony, no plot, nothing. Her son would have had no place to visit, to grieve. Horror began dawning. Michael, what did you do? The cemetery plot was already purchased. We'd bought it months earlier when you and June were planning your wills, remember? June wanted to be buried next to Dad. But after the accident, after we learned about Georgia and her little boy, Vanessa had an idea. No. I shook my head. No, you didn't. We arranged for Georgia to be buried in June's plot. We contacted her family through a lawyer, made it anonymous. Told them a benefactor wanted to help, that a burial plot was available if they wanted it. They were so grateful, Mom. They had nothing. And June? I whispered. Where is my daughter? Cremated, like the records show. Her ashes are in an urn in our basement. We were waiting. Vanessa thought we should wait until you were stronger before telling you. She thought maybe we could scatter them together, Make it a healing ceremony. I gripped the counter's edge. You let me stand at a stranger's grave for a year, talking to her, bringing flowers, crying over a woman I never knew while my own daughter's ashes sat in your basement like forgotten luggage. It wasn't like that. Get out. Mom, get out of my house. Michael stood slowly. We'll talk when you've calmed down, when you're thinking more clearly. My thinking is perfectly clear. For the first time in a year, I'm seeing clearly. You and your wife decided I was too weak, too fragile to handle the truth. You manipulated me, lied to me, treated me like a child who needed protection from reality. We did what we thought was best. You did what was easiest for you, I shouted. You avoided the hard conversations, the difficult truths. You stole my daughter's final resting place and gave it to a stranger, all while patting yourselves on the back for your generosity. Did you ever consider that maybe that family deserved to know the truth too? That little boy thinks his mother is at peace. He has no idea she's lying in a plot meant for someone else, that her grave is built on lies just like everything you told me. Michael's face flushed red. You don't understand the position we were in. The legal liability alone? Legal liability? I repeated incredulously. That's what this was about? You were covering your tracks? What aren't you telling me, Michael? He moved toward the door. I'm leaving before we both say things we'll regret. We'll talk tomorrow when you're rational. I want June's ashes, tonight. I don't think that's a good idea in your current state. They're not yours to keep. Technically, as her next of kin and executor of her estate, they are. He opened the door. I'll call you tomorrow. Don't do anything foolish, Mom. This situation is complicated enough without you making it worse. The door closed behind him. His truck engine started, headlights sweeping across the kitchen window as he backed out of the driveway. I stood alone in the sudden silence, my mind racing. Then I grabbed my phone and called the one person I knew could help. My brother's daughter, Ellen Schmidt. She was an attorney in Philadelphia, sharp as a tack, and thankfully hadn't inherited the family tendency to treat me like delicate porcelain. Aunt Audrey, is everything okay? No, sweetheart, nothing is okay. I need your help. Legal help. For the next 20 minutes, I explained everything. Ellen Schmidt listened without interrupting, and I could hear her typing notes. Okay, she said when I finished. First thing tomorrow, I'm filing for immediate access to June's estate documents and all records related to her death. Michael may be executor, but you're her mother. You have rights. Second, we need to verify the burial records. Third, and this is important, we need to figure out if there was any financial settlement with the Ball family. Why would that matter? Because if Michael paid them off, even through an anonymous donation, there might be legal implications, especially if it was done to avoid a lawsuit. That could look like hush money, Aunt Audrey. It could be construed as an admission of guilt. My head spun. You think Michael was covering up more than just June's responsibility? I think we need to find out what really happened that night. The police report, the phone records, the investigation findings. Something doesn't add up. If it was a straightforward accident with a clear cause, why all the secrecy? Why not just tell you the truth from the beginning? He said June was arguing with someone on the phone. With whom? He claimed not to know. Ellen Schmidt snorted. He knows. I'll bet my law degree he knows. I'll make some calls tomorrow, see what I can dig up. In the meantime, don't confront Michael or Vanessa again. Document everything they tell you. And Aunt Audrey, be careful. If there's something worth hiding, they might take steps to keep you from uncovering it. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and tried to process everything. My daughter had killed someone. That sweet little boy had lost his mother because June wasn't paying attention to the road. And my son had spent a year constructing an elaborate lie to hide that truth. But why? What was Michael so afraid I'd discover? I pulled out my laptop and searched for news articles about accidents on Route 47 from October 2024. Nothing appeared about June or Georgia. Strange. Fatal accidents usually made at least the local news. I tried different search terms, different date ranges. Still nothing. Then I searched for Georgia Ball directly. A few social media profiles appeared, but most were private or inactive. One, however, showed a profile picture that made my breath catch. Georgia had been beautiful. Dark hair, bright smile, holding a little boy who could only be Danny. The caption read, "My whole world." I clicked through what I could see. She'd worked at the Route 47 diner, like Danny said, posted pictures of her food, her son, sunsets over the mountains. A normal life. A life cut short by my daughter's carelessness. Guilt washed over me, but beneath it, something else stirred. Anger. Because even if June had made a terrible mistake, she deserved a proper burial. Her ashes deserved more than a basement shelf. And that little boy deserved to know where his mother really rested. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stop asking questions. Some truths are better left buried." I stared at the screen, my heart hammering. Who would send this? Michael wouldn't. Would he? I tried calling the number back. It went straight to voicemail. No greeting, just a beep. Another text arrived. "Your daughter had secrets. Secrets that died with her. Leave it alone." My hands trembled as I typed a response. "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, showing someone typing, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, a friend. "Warning you, there are dangerous people involved. People who want things to stay quiet." What people? What secrets? No response. The dots didn't reappear. I called the number again, still voicemail, sent another text. Nothing. I grabbed my coat and keys. If Michael thought I'd sit quietly while he controlled the narrative, he was about to learn how wrong he was. I drove through the dark country roads to his house 15 miles away. Lights blazed in every window. His truck sat in the driveway next to Vanessa's SUV. I parked and marched to the front door, pounding hard enough to rattle the frame. Vanessa answered, her expression shifting from surprise to cold hostility. "Audrey, Michael said you were upset. I want my daughter's ashes, right now. This really isn't a good time. The children are getting ready for bed. I don't care if the Queen of England is having tea in your living room. Get me June's ashes. Michael handles June's estate. You'll need to discuss it with him during reasonable hours, through proper channels." "Proper channels?" I repeated. "My daughter is in your basement like a storage box, and you want me to make an appointment? Lower your voice. You're frightening the children." "Good. Maybe they should be frightened. Maybe they should know their parents are liars." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "You need to leave, now, before I call the police. Call them, please. I'd love to explain to the authorities why my daughter's burial was fabricated and her ashes are being held hostage by—" "Held hostage?" Vanessa laughed sharply. "You think this is about control? This is about protecting you from your own inability to cope with difficult realities. Michael has been cleaning up messes his entire life. Your messes, his father's messes, and yes, June's messes. He's done trying to save you from yourself. What does that mean? What messes? Ask yourself why June was really on that road that night. Ask yourself who she was running from and why she was so desperate she couldn't even watch where she was driving." Before I could respond, Michael appeared behind his wife. His face was dark with anger. "That's enough, Vanessa." He looked at me. "Mom, go home. Tomorrow we'll sit down like adults and tell me what Vanessa means. What was June running from?" "Nothing. Vanessa's upset. She's not thinking clearly. Don't patronize me the way you patronize your mother," Vanessa snapped. "She wants truth? Give her truth. Tell her about the money. Tell her about the phone calls. Tell her about Detective Horton." Detective Horton? Another Horton. My mind raced. Could it be a coincidence? "Vanessa, stop." Michael's voice held a warning. "No, I'm done protecting everyone. Done keeping secrets that aren't even mine to keep." Vanessa looked at me, and something almost like pity crossed her face. "Your daughter was being investigated for embezzlement, Audrey. She'd stolen over $200,000 from the Marine Research Foundation where she worked. That's who was calling her that night. The police. Detective Frank Horton. No relation. They were closing in, about to make an arrest. She was running, and she killed someone while running from her own crimes." The world stopped spinning. Michael's face had gone white. "You had no right." "I have every right. I'm done being complicit in this disaster." Vanessa pushed past him. She lifted the bronze urn, its rose engravings catching the light. Take it, and leave us alone." She disappeared into the house. Michael stood frozen in the doorway, and I could see the truth in his eyes. Everything Vanessa said was real. "Mom," he said quietly, "please, let me explain." But I was already walking away toward the side entrance that led to their basement. I'd been in this house 100 times. I knew where to go. I found the urn exactly where Vanessa said. Blue ceramic with bronze roses. I picked it up, clutched it to my chest, and walked back out into the night. Michael didn't try to stop me. I drove home with June's ashes on the passenger seat, my mind blank with shock. Everything I thought I knew about my daughter, every memory, every proud moment, now sat under a shadow of doubt. But more than that, a new question burned through my grief. If June had stolen that money, where was it now? And why did someone send me threatening texts tonight, warning me to stop asking questions? What secrets died with my daughter? And who else knew about them? I didn't sleep that night. June's urn sat on my kitchen table, and I couldn't stop staring at it. My beautiful, brilliant daughter, reduced to ashes and lies. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Danny's tear-stained face at the cemetery, heard Georgia's final moments in my mind, imagined the impact that ended 2 lives and shattered countless others. But beneath the grief, my investigator's instinct stirred. I'd been a bank auditor for 30 years before retiring. I knew how to follow money trails, how to spot inconsistencies in records, how to find what people tried to hide. And June's alleged embezzlement had inconsistencies written all over it. At 5 in the morning, I made coffee and opened my laptop. I searched for the Coastal Marine Research Foundation where June had worked. Their website showed a professional operation, research grants, conservation projects, educational programs. June's photograph still appeared on the staff page, listed as Senior Research Coordinator in Memoriam. No mention of theft, no scandal. Strange, given what Vanessa claimed. I dug deeper, searching for news articles about embezzlement at the foundation. Nothing. I tried searching June's name with various keywords. Investigation, arrest, charges, fraud. Still nothing public. If the police had been investigating her for stealing $200,000, surely there would be some paper trail. Unless the investigation had been buried along with everything else. My phone rang, startling me. Ellen Schmidt's name flashed on the screen. "You're up early," I said. "Couldn't sleep. I've been thinking about your situation all night." She paused. "Aunt Audrey, I made some calls last night to a friend who works in the district attorney's office. There's no record of any investigation into June Horton, no charges filed, no case opened, nothing. Vanessa said a Detective Frank Horton was calling June. I checked. There is a Detective Frank Horton in the county police department, but when I called asking about June's case, he claimed he'd never heard of her. Said there was no investigation, no contact, nothing." The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. Then why would Vanessa lie about that? Why make up such a specific detail? That's what bothers me. The embezzlement story could be real, just not officially investigated. Or, Ellen Schmidt hesitated. Or someone wanted it to look real. Someone needed a reason for June to be on that road, panicked and distracted. You think she was set up? I think we need to talk to someone who actually knew what June was doing in her final weeks. Do you have contact information for anyone from the foundation? I pulled up the website again, found the director's name, Dr. Patricia Holbrook, a phone number listed for general inquiries. It was too early to call, but I made a note. There's something else, Ellen Schmidt continued. I pulled the accident report through a contact at the state police. The official report lists it as driver error. June crossed the center line. But there's a note in the file from the investigating officer. He flagged some irregularities. What kind of irregularities? June's car had damage inconsistent with a simple loss of control. There were impact marks on the rear bumper, paint transfer that didn't match Georgia's vehicle. The officer noted it looked like June might have been forced off course by another vehicle. But that line of investigation was never followed up. My hands trembled around the coffee mug. Someone ran her off the road? Maybe. Or it could be nothing. Debris from the crash, confusion in the chaos. But the officer who wrote that note? He retired 3 weeks after filing the report. Early retirement. Very generous pension. You think he was paid off? I think someone wanted this case closed quickly and quietly. And I think we need to find out why. Ellen Schmidt's voice hardened. I'm driving up today. Don't talk to Michael or Vanessa. Don't tell them what we're investigating. Just sit tight until I get there. After we hung up, I sat watching dawn break over the farmland. The wheat fields Harold and I had worked for decades glowed gold in the early light. This land, this house, they'd seen generations of my family. They'd withstand this storm, too. At 8 o'clock, I called the Coastal Marine Research Foundation. Dr. Holbrook's office, a young woman answered. Yes, my name is Audrey Horton. I'm June Horton's mother. I need to speak with Dr. Holbrook about my daughter. A long pause. I'm so sorry for your loss, Mrs. Horton. Dr. Holbrook is in a meeting, but I can have her return your call. I'll wait. Another pause. Ma'am, she's going to be tied up for at least an hour. Then I'll come there. I can be in Baltimore in 2 hours. Should I make an appointment, or would you prefer I simply arrive and wait in the lobby? Please hold. Soft music played. I waited, my heart pounding. This was a gamble. But people responded to determination, and I had plenty of that. Mrs. Horton, a different voice, older, cautious. This is Patricia Holbrook. I'm very sorry for your loss. June was an exceptional employee and researcher. Was she under investigation for embezzlement when she died? Silence stretched between us. Then, I think we should have this conversation in person. Can you come to my office at 11? I'll be there. I dressed carefully. Slacks, a blazer, the professional armor I'd worn through decades of difficult audits. If I was walking into a confrontation, I'd look the part. The drive to Baltimore felt endless. I kept checking my rearview mirror, remembering those threatening texts. Was someone following me? The morning traffic made it impossible to tell. The foundation's offices occupied the 3rd floor of a modern building near the harbor. Large windows overlooked the water where June had once studied marine life with such passion. The receptionist directed me to Dr. Holbrook's corner office. Patricia Holbrook was perhaps 50, with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that assessed me quickly. She stood when I entered, extending her hand. Mrs. Horton, please, sit down. Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee? Answers, I said, remaining standing. That's all I want. She nodded slowly and closed the door. I understand. But I need you to understand that this is a delicate situation. There are legal considerations, confidentiality issues. My daughter is dead. Whatever confidentiality protected her died with her. Dr. Holbrook moved to a filing cabinet, unlocked it, and withdrew a folder. 3 months before June died, I discovered discrepancies in our grant account. Money had been transferred out in small amounts over 6 months, $50,000 total. 50,000? I repeated. Not 200,000? Her eyebrows rose. Who told you 200,000? My son's wife. She said June stole over $200,000 and was being investigated by the police. That's not true. The amount was 50,000, and I never involved the police. Dr. Holbrook opened the folder, showing me transaction records. I confronted June privately. She broke down immediately, admitted everything, said she'd been trying to help someone, that she'd gotten in over her head and didn't know how to stop. Help who? She wouldn't say, but she promised to pay it back. She'd already returned $15,000 and had a payment plan for the rest. I agreed not to press charges or make it public if she made full restitution. She was a valued employee, and I believed she'd made a terrible mistake, not a criminal choice. I studied the documents, June's handwriting on promissory notes, bank transfers showing repayments. This was real. Did she seem frightened? I asked. In those final weeks? Dr. Holbrook hesitated. Yes. She was jumpy, constantly checking her phone. She asked me once if anyone had been asking about her, about the missing money. I got the impression she was afraid of someone finding out. But you didn't tell the police? No. And after she died, I closed the investigation. She'd already returned almost half the money, and her insurance policy paid the remainder. I saw no point in tarnishing her memory or causing her family additional pain. Dr. Holbrook looked at me carefully. Why are you asking these questions now? What's happened? I made a split-second decision to trust her. Someone is lying about what June did and why. The story keeps changing. My son said she caused the accident while fleeing from police. But there was no police investigation, was there? Not that I'm aware of. Then who was calling her that night? Who was she so desperate to escape from that she drove recklessly enough to kill someone? Dr. Holbrook's face paled. She killed someone? A woman named Georgia Ball. Head-on collision. Georgia died instantly. I watched her reaction carefully. You didn't know? The accident report I saw said single-vehicle collision. That June lost control and crashed. There was no mention of another vehicle, another victim. The room tilted. That's impossible. My son told me. I stopped. Realization crashing over me. He lied. About the other car, too. Mrs. Horton, I think you need to sit down. I did. My legs suddenly weak. Nothing Michael told me was true. Not about the investigation, not about the amount stolen, maybe not even about how June died. Why would he lie about something so serious? That's what I need to find out. I looked at the documents spread across her desk. May I take copies of these? The transaction records? The repayment schedule? Dr. Holbrook nodded slowly and made copies while I called Ellen Schmidt, filling her in quickly. Don't go home, Ellen Schmidt said immediately. Go to a hotel. Somewhere Michael doesn't know. I'm still 2 hours away, but I'll meet you there. You think I'm in danger? I think we don't know what's really going on. And until we do, you need to be careful. Someone has been lying systematically about June's death. That's not just grief or protection. That's covering something up. After hanging up, I accepted the copies from Dr. Holbrook. There's one more thing, she said quietly. A few days before June died, she came to my office. She seemed terrified. She asked me if I knew a good lawyer, someone who handled criminal cases. I gave her a name, but I don't know if she ever called. Do you still have that name? She wrote it on a notepad and handed it to me. Tom Brennan, criminal defense attorney. I was almost to the door when Dr. Holbrook spoke again. Mrs. Horton, I hope you find the truth. June was a good person who made a mistake. She didn't deserve whatever happened to her. I drove to a hotel near the airport, paid cash, and registered under my maiden name. The room was generic and sterile, but it felt safer than going home. I called the number for Tom Brennan. Brennan Law Office, a receptionist answered. I need to speak with Mr. Brennan about a former client. June Horton. I'm sorry, but we can't discuss client matters. June is dead. I'm her mother. And I believe whatever she came to discuss with Mr. Brennan might explain why. Transfer music played. Then a male voice. Mrs. Horton, this is Tom Brennan. I'm very sorry about your daughter. Did she hire you? She came for a consultation, but she never followed up. I tried calling her several times after our meeting, but she never returned the calls. What did she want to discuss? I can't reveal the specifics without proper authorization, but I can tell you she was concerned about protecting herself from criminal charges related to blackmail. My breath caught. Blackmail? Someone was blackmailing June? She believed so, yes. She'd gotten involved in something she thought was legitimate, but it turned out to be illegal. Someone was threatening to expose her unless she continued cooperating. Cooperating with what? That, I can't discuss. But Mrs. Horton, if you can provide me with documentation proving you're her next of kin and have authority over her estate, I can share my notes from our consultation. How quickly? Come to my office. I can review the documents within an hour if everything is in order. I was gathering my papers when someone knocked on my hotel room door. My heart stopped. Housekeeping. A muffled voice called. I don't need anything, thank you. The knock came again. Harder. Housekeeping. Need to check the room. I moved to the door and looked through the peephole. A figure in a hotel uniform stood outside, face obscured by a cleaning cart. Something felt wrong. Come back later, I said firmly. The figure didn't move. Then the door handle rattled. Someone was trying the lock. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 as I backed away from the door. Someone's trying to break into my hotel room. The Skyline Inn, room 347. The door burst open. A man rushed in, not wearing a hotel uniform after all, just a dark jacket and gloves. He lunged for me, grabbing for my purse where I'd stuffed the documents from Dr. Holbrook. I screamed and swung my purse at his face. The contents scattered. He dove for the papers while I ran for the open door. "Help! Someone help me!" Hotel guests appeared in the hallway. The man cursed, grabbed what papers he could reach, and shoved past me, racing for the stairs. Security arrived seconds later, then police. I gave my statement in a shaking voice, showed them the threatening texts on my phone. They promised to investigate, to check security footage, to post an officer outside my door. But when Ellen Schmidt arrived an hour later and we examined what remained of my documents, we discovered the attacker had taken only one thing: June's repayment schedule to the foundation. "Why would someone want that?" I asked. "It just shows she was paying the money back." Ellen Schmidt studied the papers we'd managed to keep, unless the repayment schedule showed where the money was really going. "Look, these account numbers for the transfers. Do they look familiar?" I studied them. Long strings of digits I didn't recognize. "We need to trace these accounts," Ellen Schmidt said. "Find out where June was really sending that money, because I guarantee it wasn't back to the foundation's account." My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "Last warning. Stop digging or end up like your daughter. Some accidents aren't accidents." I showed Ellen Schmidt. Her face went hard. "That's it. We're going to the FBI. This is beyond local police. This is blackmail, possibly murder, definitely conspiracy. Someone killed June or caused her death, and they're willing to kill you to keep it quiet. But we don't even know who they are. Then we find out. Starting with your son." Ellen Schmidt looked at me with grim determination. "I'm sorry, Aunt Audrey, but we have to consider that Michael might be involved in whatever got June killed. The lies, the cover-up, his control over the narrative, it's all too convenient." I wanted to protest, to defend my son, but the evidence kept mounting. Michael had lied about everything, and somewhere in those lies was the truth about why my daughter died, and why someone desperately wanted that truth to stay buried. The FBI field office in Baltimore was a fortress of glass and steel. Ellen Schmidt had called ahead, using her legal connections to secure us a meeting with Special Agent Caroline Rivera, who handled financial crimes. We sat in a sterile conference room, the weight of everything I'd discovered pressing down on my chest. Agent Rivera was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back and eyes that missed nothing. She listened to our story without interrupting, taking notes on a tablet. "Let me make sure I understand," she said when I finished. "Your daughter allegedly embezzled $50,000 from her employer, but the amount was misrepresented to you as $200,000. She died in a car accident that your son initially claimed involved another vehicle and victim, but your investigation suggests that may be fabricated. You've been threatened, assaulted, and warned to stop asking questions. And you believe your daughter was being blackmailed before her death." "That's correct," Ellen Schmidt said. "We have documentation, which was partially stolen during the hotel break-in." Agent Rivera's expression was neutral. "Ms. Schmidt, Mrs. Horton, I understand this is difficult, but what you're describing could be a family dispute that's escalated. Without concrete evidence of federal crimes, someone tried to break into my hotel room and steal documents." I interrupted. "That's a crime, which is being investigated by local police. As for the rest, inconsistencies in what family members told you about a death don't constitute federal jurisdiction." "I'm sorry. What about the blackmail?" Ellen Schmidt pressed. "June consulted with a criminal defense attorney about being blackmailed. Did she file a report? Did the attorney document specific threats or demands?" Ellen Schmidt's silence was enough. Agent Rivera softened slightly. "Look, I'm not dismissing your concerns, but you're asking me to open an investigation based on speculation and secondhand information. If you can bring me concrete evidence, bank records showing where the embezzled money actually went, documentation of the blackmail, proof that the accident was more than driver error, then we can talk. Until then, my hands are tied." That changed within a day, when Brennan sent Agent Rivera the bank documents and Dr. Holbrook's statement. The tone of her next call was very different. We left the FBI office frustrated and exhausted. Ellen Schmidt drove while I stared out the window, watching Baltimore's streets blur past. We need those bank records, Ellen Schmidt said. The ones showing where June's payments were actually going. Dr. Holbrook's documents showed the transfers out of the foundation's account, but we need to see where they ended up. How do we get that? I don't have access to June's banking information. Michael does. As executor of her estate, he has complete access to everything. Ellen Schmidt glanced at me. Which means if there's something to hide, he's already hidden it. Unless we can get to it first. How? I thought about this for several miles. Then, I need to go home. To the farmhouse. Aunt Audrey? That's exactly where they'll expect you to go. I know, but there's something there I need to check. I turned to face her. When June was in college, she kept a safety deposit box at the local bank. She was terrified of identity theft after a friend got hacked. She kept copies of everything important there. Passport, birth certificate, tax returns. If she was being blackmailed, if she was afraid, she might have put evidence there too. Do you have access to the box? She listed me as a co-signer when she opened it. She never removed me. I pulled out my phone and called the Riverside Community Bank. Yes, this is Audrey Horton. I need to access a safety deposit box. Number 237. One moment, ma'am. Keys clicked. Yes, I see you're listed as an authorized accessor. When would you like to come in? Today, within the hour. We close at 4. If you can make it by 3:30, that should give us enough time. I checked the clock on Ellen Schmidt's dashboard. 2:15. We'll be there. Ellen Schmidt accelerated. If Michael finds out we're accessing that box, then we'd better work fast. We made it to the bank at 3:20. The manager, a woman I'd known for years named Ruth Callahan, greeted me with genuine warmth. Audrey, it's been ages. How are you holding up? Managing, Ruth. Thank you. I signed the access log with trembling hands. I need to check June's box. There might be documents I need for her estate. Ruth's smile faltered slightly. Of course. Though I should mention, someone else accessed that box about 6 months ago. I assumed you knew. My pen stopped moving. Who? Your son, Michael. He had June's key and showed me the executor documents. Everything was in order. 6 months ago. Long before I'd started asking questions. Long before I knew any of this was wrong. Did he remove anything? Ellen Schmidt asked. I couldn't say. We don't monitor what people take from their own boxes. Ruth led us down to the vault. Here we are. Do you have your key? I'd kept it on my keychain for years. A small brass key I'd nearly forgotten about. My hands shook as I inserted it into the lock alongside Ruth's master key. The box was small, maybe 8 inches deep. Ruth lifted it out and carried it to a private viewing room. Take your time, she said, closing the door behind her. Ellen Schmidt and I stared at the closed metal box. Then I lifted the lid. Inside were documents, neatly organized in folders. But it was immediately clear that things were missing. Empty spaces where papers should have been, folders with torn edges suggesting pages had been removed. What remained was damning enough. The first folder contained copies of June's bank statements from a private account I'd never known about. Deposits and withdrawals in strange patterns. $20,000 deposited, then withdrawn in cash 2 days later. Another $15,000 in, out again the following week. Money laundering, Ellen Schmidt breathed. Someone was using her account to clean money. The second folder held photographs. June with a man I didn't recognize. Silver-haired, expensive suit, predatory smile. More photos of the same man with other people, clearly taken without their knowledge. Through restaurant windows, from parking lots, one even through what looked like an office window. She was gathering evidence, I said, building a case against someone. The third folder was labeled simply Insurance in June's handwriting. Inside were copies of life insurance policies, not just hers, but multiple policies. Names I didn't recognize. Beneficiaries highlighted in yellow. Ellen Schmidt's face had gone pale. Aunt Audrey, look at the death dates on these policies. I looked. 3 policies, 3 different people, all died within 6 months of each other. All in accidents. All with substantial payouts. Insurance fraud, Ellen Schmidt whispered. Someone was killing people for insurance money. The fourth folder contained a single document, a letter in June's handwriting, dated 2 weeks before her death. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead. I discovered something terrible at work. Not just the money I took, but what it was for. A man named Victor Reeves has been running an insurance fraud scheme. He recruits desperate people, helps them take out policies, then arranges accidents. I realized too late that the foundation's money was being used to pay off accomplices. Medical examiners, police officers, accident investigators. People who make sure the deaths look accidental. Victor found out I knew. He threatened Danny, my co-worker Georgia Ball's son. Said if I didn't help him, he'd hurt the boy. Georgia had already been murdered for refusing to cooperate. They made it look like a car accident, but I saw the photos. She was terrified before she died. I've been trying to gather evidence, but Victor is always ahead of me. He has someone inside the police department, maybe multiple people. I don't know who to trust. If something happens to me, please protect Danny. And please stop Victor before he kills anyone else. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry for everything. I was just trying to save a child. The paper trembled in my hands. Everything clicked into place with horrible clarity. Georgia Ball was real. She had died. But not in an accident with June. She'd been murdered earlier. Part of Victor Reeves's scheme. And June had been trying to save Georgia's son. The boy at the cemetery, I said. Danny, he's real. June was protecting him. But your son told you June caused Georgia's death, that they died in the same accident. Ellen Schmidt's voice was tight. He lied. Why would he lie about that unless he's involved? The words came out flat. Dead. Unless Michael is part of this. Ellen Schmidt pulled out her phone. I'm calling Agent Rivera. This is evidence of multiple murders, insurance fraud, corruption. This is exactly what the FBI needs. But before she could dial, the viewing room door opened. Ruth stood there, her face apologetic. I'm so sorry, Audrey, but there's been a situation. Your son is here. He has a court order declaring you mentally unfit and demanding custody of all materials related to June's estate, including the contents of this safety deposit box. Michael stepped into view behind her, Vanessa at his side. My son's face was hard, emotionless. Mom, you need to come home. You're not well. This obsession with conspiracy theories is evidence of declining mental capacity. Vanessa and I have been documenting your behavior. The paranoid accusations, the erratic actions, the delusions about murders and cover-ups. Delusions? I held up June's letter. Your sister wrote this. She documented everything. Victor Reeves, the insurance fraud, Georgia Ball's murder. Georgia Ball died in a car accident caused by June's reckless driving, Michael said firmly. You know this. We've been over it. Your grief is making you imagine elaborate plots that don't exist. Then explain these. Ellen Schmidt spread out the photographs, the insurance policies, the bank statements. Vanessa stepped forward smoothly. Those are clearly fabricated. Audrey's been exhibiting signs of paranoia and confusion for months. She broke into our home last night, made wild accusations, became violent when we tried to calm her. That's a lie. Is it? Michael pulled out his phone and showed a video. Me, standing in their driveway last night, shouting. The angle made me look unhinged, aggressive. He'd edited out all context. We have documentation from her doctor about memory issues, confusion, early-stage dementia. What doctor? I haven't seen any doctor. Dr. Richard Foster, your primary care physician for 15 years. Michael produced papers. He's noted cognitive decline in your last 3 visits. I stared at the documents. Dr. Foster's signature at the bottom. Notes describing confusion, memory lapses, difficulty with complex tasks. All dated within the last 6 months. But I'd only seen Dr. Foster once in that time, for a routine checkup. These other visits never happened. This is fraud, Ellen Schmidt said. Falsified medical records. Or the desperate claims of a woman helping her aunt avoid necessary care. Vanessa's smile was cold. We have the court order. Ruth, I'm sorry, but we need to secure those documents before Audrey damages or destroys them in her confused state. I'm not confused. My daughter was murdered. She was trying to expose a criminal conspiracy, and someone killed her for it. The words echoed in the small room. Ruth looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. Michael's expression didn't change. "You see how she is?" he said softly to Ruth. "We're trying to help her, to protect her from herself." "Ruth, please," I said. "You've known me for 30 years. Does this sound like someone who's lost her mind?" But Ruth was looking at the court order, at the doctor's notes, at Michael's concerned face. "Audrey, maybe you should go home with your son. Let him help you sort through this. If I go with him, I'll disappear. Just like June, just like Georgia Ball." "Mom, enough!" Michael's voice cracked like a whip. "You're coming home, now, or I'll have the police escort you. Your choice." Ellen Schmidt stepped between us. "She's not going anywhere with you. We have evidence of crimes. You have papers from a safety deposit box that my mother, in her diminished mental state, may have filled with paranoid delusions. Or that you, as her niece, might have placed there to support your own agenda." Michael's eyes were cold. "I've looked into you, Ellen Schmidt. Your law practice is struggling. You're in debt. How convenient that your aunt suddenly has wild theories about conspiracies that require extensive legal representation." Ellen Schmidt's face flushed. "You're manipulating this entire situation. I'm protecting my mother." Michael moved forward and gently, but firmly, took my arm. "Come on, Mom. Let's go home. We'll get you the help you need." I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Not painful, but inescapable. He was taking me. And with the court order, Ruth couldn't stop him. Ellen Schmidt couldn't stop him. "Aunt Audrey, don't say anything else. I'll call a lawyer. Ellen Schmidt, you should focus on your own legal troubles." Vanessa's voice was smooth. "I'd hate for your participation in this unfortunate situation to damage your career further." They were cornering us, cutting off every avenue of help. And I realized with sinking horror that they'd been planning this. The fake doctor's visits, the court order, the carefully edited videos. They'd been building a case to declare me incompetent long before I discovered the truth. Michael led me toward the exit. I looked back at Ellen Schmidt, saw her phone in her hand. She was taking pictures of the documents before Vanessa could collect them. Smart girl. "It's going to be okay, Mom," Michael said as we walked through the bank. "Once you're home, once you're resting, everything will be clearer. You'll see this was all just confusion." "What did they promise you?" I asked quietly. "Victor Reeves and his people. What did they offer to make you betray your own sister?" Michael's jaw tightened, but he didn't answer. Outside, a car waited. Not Michael's truck. A dark sedan with tinted windows. A driver I didn't recognize sat behind the wheel. "That's not your car," I said. "I borrowed it, more comfortable for the drive." But there was something in his voice, some strain that told me he was lying. This wasn't about taking me home. This was about taking me somewhere I wouldn't be able to talk, to ask questions, to threaten whatever careful structure they'd built. I had one chance. As Michael opened the car door, I suddenly went limp, dropping my full weight. He wasn't expecting it. His grip loosened. I twisted away and ran. Not far. I'm 63 with bad knees. But far enough to reach the middle of the parking lot. Far enough that people could see and hear me. "Help! I'm being kidnapped! Call the police!" I screamed. "My name is Audrey Horton. My daughter June Horton was murdered and they're trying to silence me." People stopped, pulled out phones. Michael froze, caught between chasing me and maintaining his concerned son facade in front of witnesses. Vanessa appeared at his side. "It's all right, everyone." "She's confused, having an episode. We're taking her for medical care." "Then call an ambulance," someone shouted. "You don't force someone having a medical emergency into a random car." Ellen Schmidt burst out of the bank, phone held high. "I'm recording this. If anything happens to my aunt, this video goes to every news outlet in the state, along with all the documents we found." For a long moment, everything hung in balance. Then Michael made a decision. "Let's go," he told Vanessa. "We'll handle this through proper legal channels." They got into the sedan and drove away. I stood shaking in the parking lot, surrounded by concerned strangers, while Ellen Schmidt rushed to my side. "We need to leave," she said urgently. "Right now. That wasn't about taking you home for rest. That was an abduction. Where do we go?" They have court orders, falsified records. They've made me look insane. We go to the one person who might actually listen. Ellen Schmidt pulled up a number on her phone. Tom Brennan, the lawyer June consulted. If we can get him to testify about what June told him, combined with these documents, it might be enough to convince someone in law enforcement to actually investigate. As we drove away, I looked back at the bank, at the place where June had tried to leave evidence, tried to protect me from beyond the grave. My daughter hadn't been running from the police that night. She'd been running from killers. And those same killers had somehow corrupted my son, turning him into their instrument, using him to silence me, to hide the truth, to make sure their insurance fraud conspiracy stayed buried. But I wasn't done. Not yet. June had been brave enough to fight back, even knowing the cost. The least I could do was finish what she started, even if it meant accepting that my son was lost to me, even if it meant risking everything I had left. The truth was worth it. June was worth it. And somewhere, a little boy named Danny was still in danger from the people who'd killed his mother. I wouldn't let them win. Tom Brennan's office occupied the second floor of an old brick building in downtown Harrisburg. Ellen Schmidt and I arrived just before closing time, both of us constantly checking over our shoulders. Every dark car made my heart race. Every stranger's glance felt like surveillance. Brennan was waiting for us in his office, a room lined with law books and framed degrees. He was older than his voice had suggested on the phone, maybe 60, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Mrs. Horton, Ms. Schmidt, please sit down. He gestured to worn leather chairs. I've been expecting someone to come asking about June eventually. I just didn't think it would take a year. You knew she was in danger? I asked. I suspected. She came to me terrified, talking about blackmail and murder conspiracies. I advised her to go to the FBI, to witness protection if necessary. But she was adamant about protecting someone. A child, she said. She wouldn't leave while the boy was still at risk. Danny Ball, Ellen Schmidt said. Georgia Ball's son. Brennan nodded slowly. June believed Georgia had been murdered as a warning, to show June what would happen if she didn't cooperate. The people running this scheme were using children as leverage, find desperate single parents, promise them money, then force them into the conspiracy by threatening their kids. What exactly was June supposed to do for them? I asked. Launder money through the Marine Foundation's accounts. Small amounts buried in grant expenses and research budgets. She'd taken the $50,000 trying to pay off someone she thought could help her get Danny to safety. A private investigator who turned out to be working for the same people. That's when she realized how deep the corruption went. He opened a file on his desk. After June died, I gathered what information I could. Victor Reeves is the architect, former insurance investigator who learned how to game the system. He recruits accomplices, medical examiners who falsify autopsy reports, police officers who rush accident investigations, even funeral directors who help stage the bodies. Funeral directors? My blood ran cold. James Oakmont? Yes. Oakmont Services has handled at least 7 of the suspicious deaths. Always cremation, always fast, always with minimal family involvement. June's burial plot going to Georgia Ball? That wasn't charity. That was Reeves tying up loose ends, making sure Georgia's death looked completely legitimate with a proper burial. And my son, I forced the words out. Is Michael involved? Brennan's expression softened with sympathy. June mentioned him in our consultation. She was worried about him, said he'd gotten into financial trouble, bad investments, gambling debts. Someone approached him with an offer. Help manage the insurance payouts, handle the legal paperwork, and get a cut of the proceeds. She thought he'd refused. But the way she talked about him, he paused. She was afraid to confront him, afraid of what she might discover. So Michael had betrayed us all. For money, for convenience. Maybe he'd even been involved in June's death. We have June's letter, Ellen Schmidt said, pulling out her phone to show the photographs she'd taken at the bank. We have the insurance policies, the photographs, the bank records. But Michael has a court order declaring my aunt mentally incompetent. He's using falsified medical records to discredit her. Brennan studied the images carefully. This is solid evidence. But you're right. If they've built a legal case questioning Mrs. Horton's mental state, it could all be dismissed as the confused actions of a grieving mother. He looked at me. We need to prove you're completely competent. And we need to force a confrontation where the truth comes out in front of witnesses who can't be bought or threatened. How? I asked. June's estate. Michael is the executor, but you're the beneficiary. There should be a formal reading of the will, distribution of assets. Has that happened? No, I said slowly. Michael kept saying we'd handle it when I was ready, that there was no rush. Because he's been stalling, probably trying to hide what she left behind. Brennan leaned forward. Here's what we do. You demand an immediate formal reading of June's will, with all interested parties present. Make it official, documented, with a court reporter if possible. Under oath, Michael will have to account for every aspect of June's estate, including her safety deposit box contents, her financial records, everything. He'll just claim I'm incompetent to make that demand, Ellen Schmidt said. Not if we get our own medical evaluation first. I know a psychiatrist, Dr. Cross. Former expert witness, impeccable reputation. If she evaluates Mrs. Horton and finds her completely competent, it contradicts the falsified records. Suddenly, Michael's court order looks suspicious. How quickly can this happen? I asked. Dr. Cross owes me a favor. I can get you an appointment tomorrow morning. If she confirms what I suspect, that you're sharp as a tack, I'll file an emergency motion for the will reading by tomorrow afternoon. We'll request it be held at the courthouse on the record, with all documents presented as evidence. Ellen Schmidt nodded slowly. Force everything into the open. No more shadows, no more lies. Exactly. And Mrs. Horton, I need you to understand, this will be brutal. Michael will attack your credibility, your mental state, your motivations. He'll make you look paranoid and desperate. You'll have to stay calm, rational, and let the evidence speak for itself. I've survived worse, I said, thinking of Harold's death, of June's funeral, of the year of lies I'd endured. I can do this. Then let's prepare. Tell me everything you know, every detail. By tomorrow, we'll be ready. We spent 3 hours going over every element of the case. Brennan took detailed notes, asked probing questions, helped us organize the timeline. By the time we left, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. Ellen Schmidt drove me to a different hotel, a small bed and breakfast run by an elderly couple who seemed unlikely to be part of any conspiracy. I slept fitfully, dreaming of June's face, of Danny crying at the grave, of Michael's cold eyes as he'd tried to force me into that car. The next morning, Dr. Ellen Schmidt-Cross's evaluation took 2 hours. She tested my memory, my reasoning, my emotional state, asked about the events of the past week, my decision-making process, my understanding of the situation. When she finished, she smiled. Mrs. Horton, you're one of the most mentally acute people I've evaluated in years. Your memory is excellent, Schmidt, your reasoning sound, your emotional responses appropriate to the trauma you've experienced. There is absolutely no evidence of dementia, confusion, or impaired judgment. Whoever wrote those other reports either never actually examined you or deliberately falsified their findings. Can you put that in writing? I already am. Notarized, sealed, ready to file with the court within the hour. By 2 o'clock, Brennan had filed the emergency motion. By 4 o'clock, we had a court date. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, formal reading of June Horton's will with all parties required to attend. Michael will fight this, I said as we left the courthouse. Let him. We have the law on our side now. Brennan's expression was grim. But Mrs. Horton, you need to be prepared for what might come out tomorrow. If your son is involved in this conspiracy, if he played any role in June's death, the truth will destroy your family. My family is already destroyed. These people saw to that when they killed my daughter. That night, I finally allowed myself to cry. Not the confused, grief-stricken tears of the past year, but the cleansing tears of anger and determination. June had died trying to protect a child and expose murderers. The least I could do was finish her fight. Ellen Schmidt stayed with me, ordering takeout we barely touched, going over our strategy for the next day. Stay calm no matter what Michael says. Answer questions directly and simply. Don't elaborate. Don't get emotional. Just tell the truth. What if he has more tricks? More false documents? Then we expose them. But Aunt Audrey, I need you to prepare yourself for something else. Ellen Schmidt took my hand. If Michael is cornered tomorrow, if he realizes we have enough to destroy him, he might do something desperate. Promise me you'll stay in public view at all times. Don't go anywhere alone with him. I promised, though part of me couldn't believe my own son would physically harm me. But then, I'd never believed he'd lie about his sister's death either. The next morning dawned clear and cold. I dressed carefully in a dark suit, pinned my hair back, put on minimal makeup. I wanted to look competent, professional, unshakable. The courthouse was busy with morning proceedings. Brennan met us at the entrance with Dr. Cross's evaluation and a thick folder of documents. Michael's attorney filed a motion to dismiss last night. Claimed you were too unstable to participate in legal proceedings. The judge reviewed Dr. Cross's evaluation and denied the motion. We're on. The conference room where they held will readings was smaller than I'd imagined. A long table, chairs around it, windows overlooking the parking lot. A court reporter sat in the corner, fingers poised over her stenography machine. Judge Patricia Hammond, a stern woman in her 50s, would oversee the proceedings to ensure everything was proper. Michael arrived with Vanessa and their attorney, a slick man named Carlson who specialized in estate law. Michael's face was a mask of concern and hurt. "Mom, please, this is unnecessary. We can handle June's affairs privately, as a family." "Sit down, Mr. Horton," Judge Hammond said. "This is a formal proceeding. Everything said here is under oath and on the record." We all sat. I positioned myself directly across from Michael, studying his face. Looking for the son I'd raised, the boy who'd once been kind and honest, but I saw only a stranger wearing my son's features. "We're here for the formal reading of June Elizabeth Horton's will and the accounting of her estate," Judge Hammond began. "Mr. Horton, as executor, you'll present the will and documentation of all assets, debts, and distributions." Michael's attorney opened a briefcase and withdrew papers. "Your Honor, we have the will here. It's straightforward. June left everything to her mother, Audrey Horton, with Michael Horton as executor to handle the distribution." "What assets are included in the estate?" Brennan asked. Carlson consulted his notes. "Savings account with approximately $35,000. A vehicle. Personal effects. Life insurance policy with a $50,000 benefit. The total estate value is roughly $85,000. "And the safety deposit box?" I asked. "What about its contents?" Michael's jaw tightened. "Personal papers. Nothing of significant value. I'd like those papers entered into evidence, please." Brennan's voice was calm. "As part of the complete accounting of the estate." "That's unnecessary," Carlson began. "Actually, it's required," Judge Hammond interrupted. "All assets, Mr. Carlson, even personal papers." Michael and his attorney exchanged glances. Then Michael pulled out a manila envelope. "Fine. They're just old documents. College transcripts, passport, that sort of thing." But I noticed how thin the envelope was. Nowhere near enough to account for everything Ellen Schmidt and I had seen. "Your Honor," Brennan said, "we have reason to believe significant materials have been removed from that safety deposit box. Materials relevant to June Horton's death and to potential criminal activity." The room went silent. Michael's face flushed red. "That's absurd." "My mother has been making wild accusations." "Under oath, Mr. Horton." Judge Hammond's voice was sharp. "Did you remove anything from June Horton's safety deposit box that is not included in this inventory?" Michael looked at his attorney, who was frantically whispering to him. "I may have taken some documents that I felt were private, personal correspondence, that sort of thing. Describe these documents." "Your Honor, this is harassment," Carlson protested. "My client—" "Answer the question, Mr. Horton." Michael's hands clenched on the table. "Letters, between June and some people she knew. I didn't think they were relevant to the estate." "Did these letters mention Victor Reeves?" I asked. Michael's head snapped toward me. Something flashed in his eyes. Fear. "Who's Victor Reeves?" Judge Hammond asked. Brennan stood. "Your Honor, with your permission." I'd like to present evidence discovered by Mrs. Horton. Evidence suggesting June Horton was murdered as part of a larger criminal conspiracy involving insurance fraud and multiple homicides. The room exploded. Carlson shouted objections. Vanessa stood up, her face pale. Michael just stared at me with an expression I couldn't read. Judge Hammond banged her gavel. Order! Mr. Brennan, these are serious allegations. Do you have documentation? We do. Ellen Schmidt pulled out her phone, brought up the photographs she'd taken at the bank. These were in June Horton's safety deposit box before materials were removed. Insurance policies for deceased individuals, bank records showing money laundering, photographs of Victor Reeves, and a letter from June describing the entire conspiracy. She passed the phone to Judge Hammond, who studied the images with growing alarm. Then the judge looked at Michael. Mr. Horton, explain these documents. I've never seen them before, Michael said, but his voice cracked. This is obviously fabricated. Your fingerprints are on the safety deposit box access log, I said quietly. Ruth Callahan confirmed you accessed it 6 months ago. What did you take, Michael? What evidence did you destroy? Mom, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. June discovered a murder conspiracy. She tried to expose it, and you helped cover it up. For money? For your gambling debts? Or did they threaten you too? Stop it. Vanessa stood. You senile old woman, you're destroying this family with your paranoid. Mrs. Horton is not senile. Dr. Cross spoke up from where she sat in the gallery. I evaluated her yesterday. She's completely competent. However, the medical records presented in the competency petition appear to be fraudulent. I've filed a complaint with the medical board regarding Dr. Foster. Vanessa's face went white. You can't prove anything. Actually, we can. Brennan pulled out another document. Doctor, Foster committed suicide 2 days ago. He left a note confessing that he'd been paid to falsify medical records for multiple patients, including Audrey Horton. He named Victor Reeves as the person who'd blackmailed him into cooperation. The room went silent. Michael had gone completely still, his face ashen. Before he died, Brennan continued. Dr. Foster also gave a statement to the FBI. Special Agent Rivera is outside with a warrant for Victor Reeves's arrest, and warrants for several accomplices, including anyone who helped obstruct the investigation into June Horton's death. The door opened. Agent Rivera entered with 2 other agents. Her eyes found Michael. Michael Horton, we have questions about your involvement in an insurance fraud conspiracy and the obstruction of justice in your sister's death. You have the right to remain silent. As the agents read Michael his rights, he finally looked at me, really looked at me. And I saw it. The broken, frightened man beneath the lies. My son, who'd made terrible choices and couldn't find his way back. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered. I'm so sorry. They said they'd hurt the kids. Vanessa, the children. I didn't know what else to do. You could have come to me, I said, my voice breaking despite my determination to stay strong. You could have trusted me. I thought I was protecting you, protecting everyone. Tears streamed down his face. June tried to tell me, tried to warn me before she died, but I didn't listen. And then it was too late. Agent Rivera led him away. Vanessa tried to follow, but another agent stopped her. She'd have questions to answer too. Judge Hammond looked shell-shocked. Mr. Brennan, I'm ordering a full forensic audit of June Horton's estate and an investigation into the executor's handling of her affairs. Mrs. Horton, you have my deepest apologies. The court failed you. Just make sure my daughter's real story comes out, I said. She died a hero. She died protecting a child. I want people to know that. As we left the courthouse, I felt hollow. Victorious, but hollow. I'd exposed the truth, but the cost was my son's freedom and my family's destruction. Ellen Schmidt put her arm around me. You did the right thing. Then why does it feel so wrong? We sat on a bench outside the courthouse, watching agents come and go. Over the next hour, more arrests were made. James Oakmont, the funeral director, 2 police officers, a medical examiner. Victor Reeves himself dragged out in handcuffs, his expensive suit rumpled and his predatory smile finally gone. A small figure appeared at the edge of the parking lot. Danny Ball, holding his Aunt Rosa's hand. The boy saw me and broke free, running over. "Mrs. Horton, is it true? Did you find out who hurt my mama?" I knelt down, ignoring my protesting knees. "Yes, sweetheart. We found them, and they're going to face justice. Aunt Rosa says your daughter was trying to protect me, that she was a hero. She was. She really was." Danny threw his thin arms around my neck. "Thank you for finishing what she started. Thank you for caring about my mama." I held him and wept. For June, for Georgia, for Michael, for all the broken pieces of families destroyed by greed and violence, but also for the truth finally brought into the light, and for the quiet strength that had carried me through, the stubborn determination that refused to accept lies, the investigator's mind that wouldn't stop questioning. Age, I realized, wasn't a weakness. Experience wasn't a liability. I'd been underestimated, dismissed, patronized, and that had been my greatest weapon. They'd expected a fragile old woman, easy to manipulate and control. Instead, they'd gotten a mother's fury and a lifetime of hard-won wisdom. June would have been proud. 5 months later, I stood in my kitchen watching the March sunrise paint gold across the wheat fields. Spring was coming early this year. The land was waking up, preparing for renewal. It felt appropriate. The farmhouse was quiet, the good kind of quiet, not the oppressive silence of grief and lies. I'd spent the winter sorting through the wreckage of my family, learning to breathe again without the weight of deception crushing my chest. June's ashes sat on the mantel now, in the bronze urn with rose engravings. But they wouldn't stay there much longer. Today was the day I'd finally lay my daughter to rest properly. My phone buzzed. Ellen Schmidt, checking in as she did every morning. "How are you feeling, Aunt Audrey?" "Ready," I said. "Nervous, but ready. I'll be there in an hour. Tom's coming too. He wants to pay his respects." After the arrests, the investigation had exploded into a federal case. Victor Reeves's insurance fraud conspiracy had been operating for 6 years, resulting in at least 14 murders staged as accidents. The victims were mostly single parents or people with dependent family members. Easy to manipulate, easy to threaten. The payouts totaled over $3 million, split among Reeves and his network of corrupt officials. June had been murdered because she'd gathered too much evidence. The official report confirmed what her letter had stated. Someone had forced her car off Route 47 on that rainy October night. Paint transfer from her vehicle matched a car registered to one of Reeves's accomplices, a man who'd since confessed in exchange for a reduced sentence. June hadn't been texting. She hadn't been reckless. She'd been fleeing for her life. Georgia Ball's death had been similar. Staged to look like an accident, but actually cold-blooded murder because she'd refused to help Reeves launder money through her diner's accounts. The conspiracy had used James Oakmont's funeral home to handle bodies, ensuring cremations happened quickly before proper investigations could occur. The few burials, like Georgia's, were carefully managed, donated plots that created false trails of charity while actually serving to legitimize the deaths. My phone rang again. This time, an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mrs. Horton, this is Warden Phillips at the Riverside Correctional Facility. Your son Michael has requested a visit. He's asked me to tell you he understands if you refuse, but he'd like the chance to speak with you." I closed my eyes. I hadn't seen Michael since his arrest. He'd been denied bail given the flight risk and the severity of charges. Murder conspiracy, obstruction of justice, fraud, witness intimidation. His attorney said he was looking at 20 years minimum. "When?" I asked. "Visiting hours are 1 to 4 this afternoon. I can put you on the list if—" "Yes, put me on the list." After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table where Michael and I had argued that first night, where he'd told me his carefully constructed lies, where everything had started to unravel. Did I want to see him? Part of me never wanted to see him again. But another part, the mother who'd raised him, who'd loved him long before he'd made these terrible choices, needed to understand why. Ellen Schmidt arrived right on schedule, carrying a box from the bakery. "Thought you might need comfort food." Mrs. Henderson made her famous apple turnovers. We sat eating turnovers and drinking coffee, not talking about the heavy things, just being together. Tom Brennan arrived at 9, carrying flowers, white lilies, June's favorite. "Ready?" he asked gently. We drove to Oakmont Memorial Gardens together. The cemetery administration had been cooperating fully with authorities, new management after James Oakmont's arrest. They'd given me a new plot, this one beside Harold's grave where June should have been laid to rest a year ago. A small group waited at the gravesite. Dr. Holbrook from the foundation, who'd driven up from Baltimore. A few of June's former colleagues who'd learned the truth and wanted to honor her properly. Danny and his Aunt Rosa. The boy had grown in 3 months. He still looked too thin, but some light had returned to his eyes. Rosa had enrolled him in counseling, and the foundation had established a fund for his education, partially from June's life insurance money that I'd insisted be donated. "Mrs. Horton," Danny said shyly, approaching with a drawing clutched in his hands. "I made this for Miss June." The picture showed 2 women with angel wings, one labeled Mama and one labeled June, holding hands in the clouds. Above them, in childish letters, "Thank you for being brave. It's beautiful, Danny. Should we put it in with her?" He nodded solemnly. I tucked the drawing into the urn before the cemetery workers sealed it into the burial vault. The ceremony was simple. No clergy. June hadn't been religious. Instead, Dr. Holbrook spoke about June's dedication to marine conservation, her brilliant mind, her kindness to colleagues. Tom Brennan read from June's research journal, passages about protecting ocean ecosystems for future generations. Then it was my turn. I stood looking at the faces gathered around my daughter's true grave and spoke from my heart. June died protecting a child. She died standing against evil when it would have been easier, safer to look away. She made mistakes. She got tangled in something dangerous while trying to do good. But in the end, she chose courage over safety. She chose integrity over silence. My voice caught. She was my daughter, and I'm proud of her. We lowered the urn into the ground beside Harold's headstone. I threw the first handful of soil, then Danny added his, then the others. The sound of earth falling on bronze felt final in a way it hadn't a year ago, when I'd stood at a stranger's grave believing lies. Afterward, Rosa approached me. "Thank you, Mrs. Horton, for everything, for finding the truth, for making sure George's name was cleared too." George's body had been exhumed from the plot meant for June. She'd been reburied in a proper cemetery near her family, with a headstone that told the truth. Georgia Maria Ball, beloved mother. Murdered, but not forgotten. "I'm sorry I couldn't do it sooner," I said. "You did it when you could. That's what matters." Rosa glanced at Danny, who was showing his drawing to one of June's colleagues. "He's doing better. Knowing what really happened, knowing your daughter tried to save him, it helped. He doesn't have nightmares as often anymore." After the ceremony, Ellen Schmidt drove me to the correctional facility. The building was stark concrete and wire fences, a brutal contrast to the peaceful cemetery. "Are you sure about this?" Ellen Schmidt asked. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." The visiting room was cold and sterile. Metal tables bolted to the floor, plastic chairs, guards watching from corners. I sat waiting, my hands folded to hide their trembling. Then Michael appeared, wearing an orange jumpsuit, looking 20 years older than his age. His face was haggard, his eyes red-rimmed. He sat down across from me, separated by nothing but empty air and a chasm of betrayal. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "Thank you for coming," he finally said. "I didn't think you would. I almost didn't." "How are the kids?" "I don't know. Vanessa won't let me see them. That hurt almost as much as everything else. My grandchildren, kept from me because their mother blamed me for their father's imprisonment. Never mind that Michael had made his own choices." Michael flinched. "I'm sorry. I'll write to her. Ask her." "Don't. She won't listen. And I don't need your help." The words came out harsher than I'd intended. I took a breath. "I came because I need to understand. How did this happen, Michael? How did my son become someone who could lie about his sister's murder?" His eyes filled with tears. "It started small. A few bad investments. Then gambling to try to recover the losses. Before I knew it, I was 50,000 in debt to people who don't accept payment plans. He wiped his face with shaking hands. Victor Reeves approached me at a bar, said he knew my situation, said he could make it all go away. All I had to do was handle some paperwork for insurance claims. Legal work, he said. Just complex estate planning. And you believed him? I wanted to believe him. By the time I realized what I was really doing, I was already complicit. He showed me evidence, documents with my signature, accounts in my name. He said if I tried to back out, I'd go to prison, and Vanessa and the kids would have nothing. So you chose to sacrifice June instead. No. The word came out as a sob. I didn't know they were targeting her. I didn't know she'd discovered the truth. When she died, Reeves told me it was a genuine accident. He said the police investigation would be routine, but it would be better for everyone if certain details stayed quiet. The other vehicle, Georgia Ball, he said it would just complicate things, cause legal issues for June's estate. I thought I was protecting you from additional pain. You were protecting yourself. Michael's head dropped. Yes. God help me. Yes. Once I started lying, I couldn't stop. Every lie required another lie to support it. And Reeves kept adding layers. The fake medical records, the competency petition. He said if you kept digging, you'd expose everything and destroy the family. He made it sound like silencing you was the noble choice. Did you know they planned to kill me? His head snapped up, horror on his face. What? No, I swear, Mom, I never… That car you tried to put me in. Where was it really going? To a psychiatric facility. Reeves said they'd evaluate you, keep you comfortable while you got treatment. I didn't know. He stopped, and I watched realization dawn. They would have killed you, made it look like suicide or an accident, just like June, and I would have delivered you to them. The silence stretched between us. My son had been a fool, a coward, and a criminal, but he hadn't been a murderer. Not quite. June tried to warn me, Michael continued. The week before she died, she came to my office, said she'd gotten mixed up in something bad and thought I might be involved too. She begged me to come clean with her, to go to the authorities together. But I was scared. I told her she was paranoid, that she should stop making wild accusations. His voice broke completely. The last words I said to my sister were, "Stop being so dramatic." And 3 days later, they killed her. If I'd just listened, if I'd been brave enough to… Stop. I held up my hand. You don't get to make this about your guilt. You don't get to play the tragic victim of circumstance. You made choices, Michael. Wrong choices, selfish choices, and June paid the price. I know. God, Mom, I know. I think about it every second of every day. I see her face. I hear her voice begging me to help her. Tears streamed down his cheeks. I deserve to be here. I deserve worse than this. But I needed you to know I never meant for her to die. I never wanted any of this. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but my voice was steady. I came here for answers. I have them now. I hope you find some kind of peace, Michael. I hope you use your time here to become someone better. But I can't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I understand. He looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. Will you tell the kids about me someday? When they're older? Will you tell them I wasn't always… He gestured at himself, at the orange jumpsuit, at the prison surrounding us. I'll tell them about the boy you used to be, before greed and fear turned you into someone else. I moved toward the door, then stopped. And I'll tell them about their Aunt June, how she was brave when bravery mattered, how she chose protecting a child over protecting herself. They should know at least one of their parents' siblings was a hero. I left him sitting there and didn't look back. Ellen Schmidt was waiting outside. She studied my face. How do you feel? Tired, sad, but lighter somehow. Like I've set down a weight I didn't realize I was carrying. We drove back to the farmhouse in comfortable silence. The sun was setting by the time we arrived, painting the wheat fields in shades of amber and rose. Stay for dinner, I said. I made pot roast yesterday. There's plenty. Over dinner, we talked about normal things. Ellen Schmidt's cases, the renovations I was planning for the farmhouse, the garden I wanted to plant this spring. Slowly, carefully, I was rebuilding a life from the wreckage. After Ellen Schmidt left, I walked through the quiet house. So many memories here. Harold proposing to me in the kitchen, teaching June and Michael to ride bikes in the yard, family dinners, Christmas mornings, ordinary moments that had seemed unremarkable at the time, but now glowed with precious significance. This house had seen joy and sorrow, birth and death, truth and lies. But it was still standing, still solid, like me. I made tea and sat in Harold's old chair by the window, watching night fall over the land we'd worked together for so many years. Tomorrow, I'd call the county extension office about crop rotation strategies. Next week, I'd meet with a financial advisor about properly investing June's estate funds. Life continued, demanding attention, pulling me forward even when part of me wanted to retreat into grief. My phone buzzed. A text from Danny. "Thank you for today. Mama and June are together now. That makes me happy." I smiled through tears and typed back, "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." There was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Tom Brennan standing on my porch, holding a file folder. "Tom? What are you doing here? I have something you should see. May I come in?" I led him to the kitchen and put on more tea. He opened the folder and withdrew a letter, June's handwriting, addressed to me. "This was in her apartment," Tom said. "The FBI released it after they finished their investigation. June wrote it a week before she died. I think she knew she might not survive." My hands trembled as I took the letter. "Dear Mom," it began, "if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. I'm so sorry for the pain I've caused you, for the secrets I kept, for the danger I got myself into. I thought I was being smart, gathering evidence, building a case. But I underestimated how ruthless these people are. I need you to know that everything I did trying to help. Georgia Ball was my friend. When I realized Reeves was targeting her, I tried to intervene. I took money from the foundation thinking I could buy her and Danny's safety. I was naive. I was reckless. But I was trying to do the right thing. If something happens to me, please protect Danny. Make sure he knows his mother loved him. Make sure he knows she died because she wouldn't help criminals hurt people. And Mom, please don't trust Michael blindly. I love my brother, but I think he's involved in something bad. I tried to talk to him, but he shut me down. Be careful around him. Be careful around anyone connected to Victor Reeves. You've always been the strongest person I know. Even when Dad died, even through all the hard times, you never broke. You just kept going, kept fighting, kept finding ways to survive and help others. That's what I've tried to do. I'm not as strong as you, but I tried. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry I won't be there for your birthday, for the holidays, for all the ordinary moments I took for granted. Thank you for everything you've given me. Thank you for teaching me that doing the right thing matters more than doing the easy thing. If I don't make it through this, know that I died trying to protect an innocent child. I hope that makes you proud. I hope you can forgive me for the mistakes I made along the way. Your daughter always, June. I clutched the letter to my chest and wept. Tom sat quietly, letting me grieve, letting me process this final gift from my daughter. She knew, I finally said. She knew what might happen, and she did it anyway. She was brave, like her mother. I looked at him through tears. I'm not brave. I'm just stubborn. Too stubborn to let lies stand. Too stubborn to let evil win. That's what bravery looks like, Audrey. Not the absence of fear, but moving forward despite it. You honored June's fight. You finished what she started. You protected Danny. You exposed the conspiracy. You did everything she hoped you would do. Later that night, I read June's letter again, memorizing every word. Then I placed it in the family Bible alongside Harold's obituary, June's birth certificate, and the other documents that marked our family's journey. The next morning, I woke early and walked out to the fields. The wheat was just beginning to show green shoots, new life pushing up through the soil. In a few months, there would be a harvest. The cycle would continue, as it always had. I thought about June's letter, about her apology for missing birthdays and holidays and ordinary moments. But she hadn't missed them. She'd been there in every memory, every lesson she'd taught me, every moment of courage she'd modeled. And she was here now, in the wind across the wheat fields, in the sunrise painting the sky, in the stubborn determination that had carried me through the darkest months of my life. My daughter was a hero, and I'd made sure the world knew it. The farmhouse stood solid behind me, witness to generations of my family's struggles and triumphs. It would stand for generations more, because some things, truth, integrity, the love between mother and child, couldn't be destroyed by evil or corrupted by lies. They endured, like the land, like the wheat that rose year after year, no matter how harsh the winter. Like me, I was 63 years old. I'd survived losing my husband, losing my daughter, and losing my son to his own worst choices. I'd faced criminals and conspiracies and my own family's betrayal, and I was still standing. Age, I'd learned, wasn't a weakness to be exploited. It was wisdom hard-won, strength tested and proven, determination forged through decades of surviving life's cruelties. They'd underestimated me because of my gray hair and gentle manner. They'd mistaken kindness for weakness, politeness for submission. They'd learned too late that a mother protecting her child's memory was the most dangerous force they'd ever face. I walked back to the farmhouse as the sun cleared the horizon, ready to begin again, ready to rebuild, ready to honor June's sacrifice by living fully, by fighting for truth, by refusing to let evil have the final word. The empty grave had revealed terrible secrets, but it had also revealed something more important, that love endures beyond death, that truth ultimately prevails, and that the quiet strength of a woman who refuses to surrender can shake the foundations of corruption. June's body now rested beside her father's, where it should have been all along, but her spirit, her courage, her integrity, her fierce protection of the innocent, lived on in me, and that was a legacy worth fighting for. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.